the flu.
Appreciate it.
Well, Shaunak, hey, thank you so much for taking the time, man. It's so funny because I know we've talked about the you and Docsum a little bit, just one off, but I don't think we've ever talked about the full story. So I'm excited to kind of get to it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, Shaunak, why don't we start from the beginning? Tell me all about you and Docsum and how this all started.
Well, I think my journey starts, really back when I started my first startup journey with my co-founder Alex. We're really good friends from back in North Carolina in undergrad days at NC State, and we actually
Were
started
you
our
roommates?
first. We weren't. No, we just met
Okay,
on campus. We were in electrical engineering together, and that's how we met
got
each
it.
other. Yeah, and we always had, a passion about, starting something, throughout college, and had the opportunity to start a business together, which was not in the tech space at all, which was in the alcohol catering business. So we actually started
Wow.
a mobile bar company called Barbox, down in Raleigh, North Carolina, where we took an
Whose idea
old.
was that? And how many drinks had you had when you guys came up with this idea?
I would like to say the number was a lot lower than it actually was, but let's just say that Alex and I like to entertain. Uh,
Beautiful.
and yeah, we originally, in Raleigh at the time, it was going through a bit of a transformation. A lot of the downtown area was being developed, and there was a lot of unused space, a lot of unused land, and so we thought, what better way than to create a physical concept where people could enjoy the outdoors, and we were originally thinking about a bar and dog park concept called Bark.
Ooh,
So we
great
were
name.
we were thinking about ways that we could activate some of these unused lots, and so our idea was to buy a mobile horse trailer, flip it into a bar coffee unit, and run these concepts. And so, fast forward a couple months, we weren't able to kind of get the permitting process to where we wanted, but we did figure out how to build a horse trailer out, and we decided to build an alcohol catering business. And so we ran that while we were working full time. Alex was at
Yeah.
Fidelity, I was at Capital One, and that was our first foray into working together really on a business. And we started that in 2018 and ended up selling it in 2022.
That's incredible. Why'd you sell it?
You know, it really got to the point where we needed a second horse trailer to
Sure.
expand the business, and so we felt like our talents were probably better spent building a tech startup. But we got really deep into contracting as a small business, the alcohol regulations within North Carolina, and then having that experience of actually selling a business ourselves to another operator. That was all kind of our first foray into legal.
So is that where the idea for Docsum came from?
A bit, yeah. We really enjoyed kind of the process of our legal transaction and our workflow, and where we really sank our teeth actually was later at another job called Pacaso Homes, and so we got an opportunity to work together at a startup that was in the fractional co-ownership of real estate called Pacaso, where a lot of our product was our transaction process, and so Alex and I got to work with our sales team and our legal team there, where we were really thinking about some of our legal transaction workflows, and got familiar with some of the tooling in the space, and was really inspired to start a company to help out lawyers at the time.
Did you guys both join Picasa together?
So funny enough,
Have you
we
guys been a package deal since like NC State, it sounds like?
that's right, that's right. When we joined, we were both familiar with. We had a mutual friend that was working at the company, and there was this opportunity where they needed a product manager and a back-end engineer, and so it was kind of a good fit. I
You guys
remember.
showed up to the interview together?
That's right. That's right. I remember 3 months in, we were having dinner at an offsite with the CEO, and he was, "How did this happen? Like, how did you guys working together?" And, that was a really cool opportunity to be able to, kind of get into trouble both at Barbox and at Picasso together, working together on the same problems.
But you saw all of the transaction workflow, you saw the legal back and forth at Picasso, and
Yeah.
then you guys decided to leave to start Docsum?
Well, so at the time, I think Pacaso was going through a lot of changes, and so they had gone through like 3 rounds of layoffs. And it was really at the end where we were kind of like closing up shop as a product team. And so Alex and I both, I would say fortunately got laid off to be able to start this opportunity together. And it was at the time where Alex was living in New York, I was in San Francisco, and we were thinking about whether or not we wanted to join another company or start something ourselves. And
Yep.
that's really when GPT-3 came out. I remember I had gone to a LangChain meetup at the time,
Yep.
and it was only about 30 people, and met a lot of interesting people, specifically the CTO of Zapier, who told us, hey, like I'm actually going to step down from being CTO for a bit and making my head of engineering CTO, and I'm going to go off and explore this whole AI thing. And met a couple other YC founders while I was there, and they all encouraged me to apply. And so Alex and I, were tinkering on a couple different ideas and landed on, hey, I think we should really stick to legal. It's something that felt like a particular pain that we were both familiar with at Pacaso, and
Yep.
probably something that we would enjoy doing and building as a company together. And so that's when we applied to YC in March of that year.
And then you guys got in.
And we got in. Yeah, that was
There
really
you
cool.
go.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the early days. Like, how'd you find your first customers? What did the MVP look like? Like, what did the beginnings look like?
Yeah, the beginnings were, kind of a scrappy prototype. We had, at the time, the magic was being able to chat with a PDF, right? So the first
Yeah.
versions of ChatGPT, you couldn't have external file upload, right? And so we built a chat with PDF app, and we made it a little bit more legal focused. So we had some metrics that you could pull specifically about contracts, and really we're thinking about contract review and building kind of a web-based, think about like a Google Docs editor for legal, and that's what we got into YC with. And the original intention actually of the app was to build for other startups. So, startups are negotiating. They typically don't have budget or time
Right.
to be able to work with outside counsel. And so our intention was to get into YC and try to kind of validate our idea with early stage companies.
Got it. Got it. And how did you find those first few customers?
It was in our batch. We were, meeting other folks that were like, hey, we're signing this deal or we're meeting this enterprise, and, trying to test the product with them. It was mostly early stage companies where founders were leading, negotiations themselves. And, it was through the batch that we learned kind of a couple things. One, early stage companies don't really have the volume necessary for kind of a scaled B2B kind of motion. And
Yes.
two, it just turns out that early stage founders don't actually negotiate all that much. They kind of accept
They just roll over.
Right.
They just take what we can get.
Take what we can get. And so that's when our focus towards the end of the batch really focused towards, B2B enterprise SaaS companies focusing on in-house legal counsel, where they, had a perspective. They were really informed about the product and the outcomes they wanted to drive and really building for them.
Got it. Got it. What have been some of the biggest lessons you've had so far as a founder?
Yeah. I think one thing that YC says during the batch, and I think we can all learn from, is like launch early. Always get your ideas out there, because as much thought we have around, putting something into the world, like oftentimes it's a little drop and a little ripple, right? And so getting that muscle of just pushing things out there and getting feedback, I think is one. I think another one was, at the time, who we were getting feedback from. So at the time, we were working on this web-based editor for building out contract review, and it was pretty complicated. We were both trying to build a legal tech platform and a web-based document editor, and you
Right.
definitely have a lot of experience with
Yeah.
this
It sucks.
with Roger, right? It's really tough. And so at some point, we decided that what we were taking on was quite ambitious, and we
Yep.
actually ended up pivoting the idea a bit, which I'll get to in a bit. But yeah, I think like focusing on distribution, focusing on, talking to more customers, and maybe building something that was smaller and more simple, instead of so kind of ambitious from the get-go, would have been something that we would have probably taken a second pass at if we did it again.
Shaunak, I'm so curious because, as you and I know, launching early with an MVP and getting feedback is the MO that we've been taught. And also, we've been taught that works. At the same time, when you're dealing with a customer base that has higher standards or maybe lower risk tolerance, it's hard to find that balance and to figure out, hey, is what's not working because it's not a real need, or it's what's not working because the MVP just didn't hit the minimum viable threshold that they just might have? How do you guys go about that?
I think that what we learned the hard way was that the minimal bar for our buyers, which are
Yeah.
innately a risk mitigation role,
Yes.
right, is
Very risk adverse.
and they're very allergic to change as a result,
Yep.
right? And so anything outside, 1 degree outside of what they're normally used to, is something that we have to take on as a huge change management challenge. And so, for example, like today we have contract review, but it's built directly within Microsoft Word. We also
Hmm.
have contract review, but it's an email agent, right? So we're introducing kind of a 1 degree outside of what they're normally used to as part of their workflow, and that has been resonating really, really well, as opposed to, hey, we're going to introduce a radically new, different workflow to what you're used to. So, I think all of our buyers at the time and our early users, lawyers, they're very forward thinking, right? Like a lot of these
Right.
in-house professionals are dealing with innovation day in, day out. They have an appetite, for the things that are new. But when you ask them the same question of, would you use this? I think it's quite a different answer. So, we had to be a lot more selective about the kind of feedback that we were seeking rather than, folks that are generally pretty positive about anything that they want
Right.
to support as opposed to what they're paying for.
Right. I'm so curious. What have been some of the toughest lessons, or maybe like the toughest times you've been through as a founder?
Yeah. I think one of the things that we were kind of deciding we kind of pivoted to being more of a post-signature management platform. So the idea being a lot of businesses don't necessarily know what they've signed. They have
Yep.
contracts that are singing DocuSign or Google Drive, and
Yep.
being able to become a system of record. Um, that seemed to be an obvious place that a lot of the market wasn't focusing on, and was an obvious opportunity because a lot of the incumbent software or CLMs in the space weren't very good at it. And so we
Yep.
said, well, why don't we go to a place where nobody's focusing on? And we quickly learned that there was just so much to build to get right to be able to even hit minimal lovable product, right?
Right.
Integrations, data extraction, quality, and there was a time period for about 9 months where we were just kind of in the weeds building software, and we had a couple
How'd you handle
customers
that?
that,
I found the hardest part about that journey is the mental part.
yeah, I mean, it was crazy because we would like ship something that we thought was good enough, go back to customers, and we're like, all right, will you be willing to pay for it? And they'd be like, no, but we need X, or no,
Sure.
but we need
Yes.
Y. And there was like
Yes.
this period of just kind of utter delusion that we had to go through that like at some point there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
But
And
maybe
we
that's
were
what
just,
being a founder is, utter
yeah,
delusion.
yeah, and there's just like so many darts that we're throwing at the dartboard that like felt right, but just weren't sticking.
Sure.
And, we were thinking about burn. We were also then being like, all right, well, we just need to survive to the point that we're actually making some revenue. And
Yeah.
so that changed our way and becoming a lot more like risk. We were trying to limit risk, so not making like as aggressive investments and maybe hiring that,
Yeah.
changed our perspective. So I think like obviously hindsight's 2020. You want to like step on the gas now knowing what we know now, but yeah, it was a pretty scary time in terms of, is this even the right thing that we should be working
Yeah.
on? Is the information that we're getting from prospective customers even the right things? And so, yeah, it was really hard to get good advice. And we were kind of at the edge of knowledge in terms of there was not a lot of precedent for what we
Right.
were doing, and so we needed to
And
kind
what
of
kept
figure.
you going during all that time?
It was really helpful because I think, Alex and I were so inspired by Linear in particular.
Sure.
Um,
Yes.
and we talk about this a lot because I think Linear to us represents a software company that is just a team of craftsmen, right?
Yeah.
They value, the artistry of building software and having strong opinion. And
Yeah.
as somebody who's been a PM and using like Jira for years, like I dreaded using Jira. And
Right.
Linear was such a breath of fresh air. And for us, there was like, there has to be something true of this for lawyers, right? Of being able to build the right opinions within the software and move very quickly. And
Right.
and if that assumption was true, that somebody had to do it, and we didn't really see those examples, and so we were like, maybe it's us. And so, we it was kind of this like kind of blind faith that like we could keep, you know, building the best thing, and the terminology and the style and the vibe would be picked up by specific customers, and eventually would work out. And so it is cool now seeing like, our first 20 customers like
Right.
using the language that we use and thinking about
Yeah.
primitives in software in the way that we think about, because they're the ones that are kind of evangelizing this for other
Right.
places.
So I do have a little cheat sheet here because the other thing that's Alex mentioned to me that kept you
Yep.
guys going is you were having a lot of fun along the way.
Yep.
Was that a big piece of it from your end?
I can't complain. I had the opportunity. I'm getting to build a company with my best friend. Alex was my best
Right.
man at my wedding, right? And we've gone
Yeah,
through so
yeah.
much of it together. And like, while it was very difficult, knowing that there's this ultimate support system in your co-founder and being able to just try new things and just get better, has always been a motivation for us to even start a company. I
Right.
think a lot of people come into this space thinking that they're going to make, a ton of money or they're going to get a lot of fame. And while that's obviously a motivation, in some degree, getting the opportunity to just like build something cool and do that on your own principles has always been the biggest privilege. And so,
Right.
we really cherish that and value that, every day.
You teased this a little bit, but it sounds like you have a new product or a new direction that's
Yeah.
coming up. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, our core offering is a repository, right? A post-signature
Yep.
management platform. And what we realize is that a lot of lawyers are precedent-based, right? The first question then they're going to ask when they see a contract is, what have we done before?
Yeah.
So, right, they
Yes.
don't want to invent anything new. And so what we've done is we recognize that our platform maps that precedent. And so what we can do is then use that information, like kind of like mapping the DNA of the choices that they've made to influence some of the pre-signature workflows. So we've built two products in the past couple months. One that's an email negotiation agent. It's pretty cool. You can send a contract to an email. And if Michael Wang were to send that to us, we would actually review that agreement, negotiate it on your behalf, and send back the red line version, all authored in your name. So it's kind of a
Wow.
magic product that's
Within
cool.
Word.
Right with an email, actually, we actually
Oh,
handle
within
all of that.
email.
Yeah,
Oh.
with an email. And then the second product is an actual Word add-in. So this is a plugin that you download from the Microsoft App Source.
Yeah.
And then it's a copilot that pops out. It'll review a contract, generate red lines. You can apply it to the agreement and really use it as like almost a cursor for legal docs, right? It's a
Right.
cursor like add-in. So all of that is really, we would call that as an extension of our repository, like
Yeah.
being able to bring that precedent right into the transaction. So one offering, one thing that we've been doing for a lot of early stage companies is actual contract review. So we have a number of YC companies that we're supporting today, but teams that don't have in-house counsel, maybe they're negotiating MSAs and order
Right.
forms, whether or DPAs. We set up a Slack channel. They work with us, and we're able to offer a flat-based bill for unlimited contract reviews directly with
Wow.
Slack. So we do that.
That's available to any startup?
It's available to any startup, and the way that we do it is, and we're able to actually make that profitable for us, is that we actually use our software under the hood. So you
Yeah, that
actually
makes
have
sense.
an
Yes.
attorney who's directly within Slack. They're working with you, and they'll turn around, contract reviews in your name for you to review. So we are not, a law firm. So I just do want to make that clear. We're not a law firm by
Yes.
any accord, but we do
In a
offer.
conversation about legal tech, we have to make sure all the disclaimers are out there.
Yes, yes. But we're able to take your precedent. We're able to take your templates. We're able to take deals that you've done in the past, and we're able to use that as a way to help inform some of and accelerate some of the choices that you would already make, and then put that first draft for you to review and accelerate. So, we have teams where originally it's the CEO or the founder owning all the redlining, and now their sales team is just interacting with Docsum directly in Slack to
Right.
get all their deals done.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Shaunak, this is so interesting. I'd love to ask you a few questions about you as a founder now.
sure.
So we talked about some of the ups and downs, the sheer delusion. I am curious, do you have any habits or rituals that just help you reset, get
Yeah,
through the days that keep you sane as you have an insane job?
yeah. Um, One thing I would say is, uh, things that I love to. I make sure that like my passions are something that I can definitely experience every day, if not every couple days. So one of those is cooking. I feel like
Oh,
as
really?
as founders, like, we're working on long-term goals. A lot of the things that we want to achieve don't happen in the same day. And so for
Yep.
me, being able to cook a meal where like I buy ingredients, cook, clean up, eat is like it's one of the few things that I can see from start to finish in the same day.
Oh, that's so
And
interesting.
and I feel like having that sense of completion is one of the most
Yeah.
rewarding things because oftentimes we don't feel that sense of completion day to day.
That's so
Um,
interesting. I
yeah.
get it. Do you have a favorite dish that you cook?
I cook a lot of Indian food. I actually started an Indian spice company with my mother,
Oh my
called
God.
Mama
How many
T's.
companies have you started?
A little passion project with her.
Yes.
But yeah, I love making a dish called rajma. It's a North
Okay.
Indian red bean dish, super hearty. Tastes like Indian chili, but it's super good. And I, usually want to make a pot of that and have it in the
Can
fridge.
can can Jordan and I invite ourselves over to your apartment?
Absolutely, anytime, anytime. We can definitely do that. I love cooking. I think that's big. I also play basketball every Wednesdays with the same group of guys.
Oh,
We
nice.
play every week, and so that's a nice ritual.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing is daily. I tend to wake up. I try to wake up as early as possible, and I'm usually the
Okay.
first one here in the office. But I try to take my mornings a bit slow. Drink a cup of coffee, and then I always keep like a notepad with me where I'm like actually writing. So I will write down my
Have
goals and
you
my
always
to-do
done
list.
that, or is that new? The
I've
notepad.
always done that. I've always
Interesting.
woken up and physically write down what I need to do, even if it's
Yeah.
repeating day after day and I don't get it done. Because what I find is that if I physically write it down, my relationship with that work and how I remember it is quite a bit different than just like typing it out. So
It
I'm
makes
still
it
very
more approachable. Is that what you
makes it
find?
more approachable. It makes it feel like I do remember it. There's as a founder, you're just stretched thin amongst a bunch of different priorities. And
Yeah.
I've tried a ton of to-do lists and to-do apps, and to be honest, a notebook and pen and paper is like honestly the best thing, for at least for my workflow.
I'm gonna steal this tip from you. It sounds helpful because like find myself trying to be so efficient with digital and et cetera, and it never fully takes.
Yeah.
I do think there's something magical in physical writing.
Yeah, it's physical. It feels like
Yeah.
again something that's real when most of the stuff that I'm pushing is vibe coded stuff that's somewhere in a cloud, right? Like there's
Yeah.
very few physical things that I get to enjoy. So pen and
That's
paper.
right. So Shaunak, this has been super helpful. Two final questions. All right.
Yeah.
First one would be, why are you in New York City?
Wow. So couple reasons. One is I'm an East Coast kid. I grew up on the
Sure.
East Coast. Actually grew up in New York City when I was younger, and then my
I don't think
family's
I didn't realize
in.
that. Oh
Yeah, I grew
wow.
up here in Flushing till I was 8, and then moved to North Carolina. My wife's family is also on the East Coast in North Carolina as well, and then my co-founder Alex, his entire family is in the New York, kind of Pennsylvania
Oh
area.
wow. Yeah.
And so I think from a timing perspective, it just made sense. Like if we had the opportunity to just be proximally close to family, that's a big thing that we wanted to prioritize. Number two, I love the feeling of being small in New York City. We have this like little world of like legal tech and working so hard and all of these things. But as soon as I step outside of the office and I'm walking home, there's a million other people that are kind of all thinking about other things. And I think this like it's a very humbling to be in New York and seeing people experience success that's outside of the world of tech. Whether it's dance or food or other avenues for success, I think is really humbling, and it's just a joy to be around other people that just want to be the best.
Right.
And yeah, I think New York is amazing, and I think one thing that was tough for me in SF was as beautiful as a place that it is, you know, um, it was hard for me to continue to stay in a place that relatively had like a homogenous culture, and being in New York City is something that just brings me a lot of energy, and I think that is something that makes me a better founder.
Oh wow. Yes, that's beautiful. Last question for you is for anyone that's reading this or listening out there, like how can they be helpful to you?
Yeah, if you are, a founder and you need some help with contracts, we're happy to help out. Whether it's contract review or anything from that aspect. I would say we're looking to also figure out ways to connect with more in-house attorneys. And so if you know folks, would love to amplify our message that way. And then two, if you're in New York and, you're looking to just meet up and collaborate and be friends, like we are working, we're working a lot, with a lot of AI and document processing, and
Yeah.
we like to get pretty nerdy on some of the technical aspects and technical stacks. So other really good builders are folks that we want to connect with and spend more time with. Yeah, happy to jam.
Amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Shaunak, thank you so much. This has been super helpful.